There you are. Ah, well, welcome to Thursday. We have Shannon again. Nice to see you. Lanny, hello. And Eve, Loretta, Debbie, Brian, Kelsey, all the usual suspects. We have a new co-host, Russell. Thank you, Russell. And Vonnie. Hello, Vonnie. Thank you for being here. Gary's coming in. Oops, did I just, yeah. So we'll take a moment here, let people get in the room. I think we're mostly regulars, so you know that we're going to stall a little bit. I wonder if anybody wants to open the day with anything. Just questions, comments, something that you read or wanted to share with the group. I don't know. Carrie, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, sure, always.
You do. I know
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah. Well, I energy, I watched your video and energy, boy,
Oh,
oh boy, oh boy. It's underestimated and understudied and
yeah.
you could feel energy a mile away. And or we can perceive that we think we know what the energy is that we bring to it. So I like the video of how to stop all that stuff, allow, stop, um, push, pull, and it's very useful. But boy, oh boy, woo energy.
Yeah. All right. Carrie's already getting us rolling on the topic. So, when we get started, we're going to do a brief visualization on energy, and then we'll get into the topic. And then I'm so interested to hear everyone's perspectives because I would be willing to bet that at least half the people that are going to be with us today have actually done some type of training in some type of energy healing or energy awareness. And so I have lots of questions for the group today. Um, well, I'm tempted to just even get starting on what Carrie said, but wait, oh, okay, tell us about that, Lanny. Is that a new book that
I just this is a children's book, but Cleo Wade, I never heard of her before, but she's incredible. And she wrote Heart Talk. She's supposedly the new Oprah that I never knew she was. But my favorite page here is may your mind always stay open and may you be weird. Very, very weird. May your weirdness be your superpower and excite you and take you on adventures near and far. So this is this is what I was talking about, and it's so cool.
Wow, I'm making a note here.
She's amazing. The regular book is Hard Talk, and it's just inspirational, really positive. She's incredible. So I'm
Oh,
thrilled to. I thought
And
I was the only.
what's your last name?
Wade.
Cleo Wade is the author,
Wade.
and
Wow.
then here's Hard Talk, and she's done other stuff. But she's incredible, spiritual, uplifting, sense of humor.
Hmm. Thank you. Look at that, Lanny. You've just introduced us to to someone who's new to some of us. Maybe other people have heard.
She was
Uh,
new to me until a couple of days ago. I'm like, wow.
so tell me one question about Heart Talk. Is it written as a book or is it written as a series of poems?
She's a bit of a poet, so like this is the type of stuff in the Hard Talk. But she talks about please mark this,
Hmm.
clean out your thoughts. They have the power to cover your entire life in dirt. Just really, um, shame never tells us the truth. It tells you you're not good enough.
Wait, could you say that slower?
Shame never tells the truth. It tells you you're not good enough. The truth is you are. It tells you you have to be perfect. The truth is you don't. It tells you your mistakes are fatal wounds. The truth is you heal. It tells you everything has fallen apart. The truth is you will rebuild. It tells you that you will stay sunken in despair. The truth is you will rise. So just amazing, it's short and sweet, and she says mark the pages, do this and that. Really incredible.
Nice. Very good. Thank you, Lanny. How about we'll take a couple more people. Anyone reading something really powerful like Lanny or a film that you've seen you want to suggest to the group? I see Steffi Bell. Oh, Steffi Bell is here, and I don't see you, but I remember you, of course. Can you put this in the chat? So it's called Cleo Wade. I think I just spelled that wrong. Cleo Wade. Yeah, I just quickly looked her up. She's very easy to find. Anybody else? Just something interesting you've been reading? A film you saw that got you thinking? Come on, let's get a couple more little inspirational nuggets. Debbie, please, come on, unmute. Unmute yourself. I can't hear nothing.
I don't
There
know
you are.
about, I don't want to add my books, but I saw two roosters from New Zealand this week on Zoom, and I was wondering if you knew of the particular tribes that were associated with the university there, if you had any indigenous connection.
Well, I actually, so the short answer is I currently have no real connection. But the Maori people are the people are the traditional people of New Zealand. And years ago, I went over and stayed in a community, a Maori community for a month, with some traditional healers, some elders, in the area called, oh shoot. I was just gonna, it's so funny. It was called, uh, I
Well, your
can't,
brain will fire later. You can tell us.
yeah, I want to say, oh my God, it was, I can't remember. You know why? This is embarrassing. Because the name that keeps coming to mind is the name of Moana's village, Motunui. But it was something very, very similar. Um, at any rate, so I stayed in that community. It was about 25 years ago, so I forget the name. But why do you ask?
Well, because I have a second author to my article from Massa University, and they have indigenous tribes there, and I haven't had a chance to speak with her in depth about them. And she said there isn't really anything written that's accurate. So, and then I wondered very quickly off the top of your head, what a rooster, what kind of totem would be a rooster if you had
Okay,
it living room or something, she had it in her living room. So
so this is very much a tangential comment, but let's take it. And then we're going to wrap up and we'll close our sort of 10-minute schmoozing introduction and we'll get right into our topic. So I remember the name while you were talking. Wanganui was the name of the community where I stayed. Wanganui, and Moana was from a village called Motunui. So hopefully I can be forgiven. Um, and the a couple things to mention. My experience for people who are interested in Indigenous tradition and Indigenous rights and things like that, I have found that New Zealand is one of the most progressive places in the world, without a doubt, where Indigenous culture and language has found not yet total equity, but an incredibly powerful balance with Western society. Still distance to go. When you get off, this was 25 years ago. You get off the plane and you're greeted in a bilingual airport that is Indigenous Maori language and English. And so you'll find a lot of credible and well-spoken Indigenous authors and teachers out there. It's not too hard to do some research and try to find some good writing about it. On the other hand, it is also true, to your point, that the history of anthropology has really been a kind of tragic one, because on one hand, anthropology has done an extraordinary amount to contribute to understanding society and psychology and human development. On the other hand, it is its own field of human reflection, and a huge amount of traditional anthropology pre 1990 really distorted the traditions they studied and did not reflect the subjects. And I think you were referring to that, so that a lot of times when you want to learn about a indigenous nation or an indigenous community or tribe, the material you would pick up wouldn't really reflect what they felt or the way they would describe themselves. It would reflect a Western, often, not always, white male interpretation, which was, of course, through their own lens. So anyway, that's just a worthy note to bring up, and I'm glad you sort of raised the topic. And it's also just as a transition out of our warm-up chat. It also presents an interesting lesson, which is that really nobody can speak entirely on somebody else's behalf. And, it's one of the, interestingly, it's one of the things I learned from my own, Indigenous father, which is never speak for another tradition, never speak for another person. You can only speak for your experience of it, and whatever you say must be conditioned and qualified in that way. And think about that just in terms of our relationships, just basic human relationships, and how often we make assumptions about what other people feel, what they said at a meeting, what they meant at a family gathering. Even when we're in a disagreement, we might say, you said this, or when you said this, you made me feel this, or you're being judgmental. All this language we have in the West that lacks ownership. And so the indigenous approach that I was taught, which reflects the problem of anthropology, is that you only speak for yourself, period. You don't speak for your community. You don't speak for your family. You only speak for yourself. And that's a pretty profound lesson, because I think we're all sitting here with stories about our childhoods and our relationships and even our present condition. And we believe it. We start to believe it as if it were true. I'm going to use this as a segue into our topic today, which is energy. And there's something interesting about the topic of energy, because you can take it literally, metaphorically, you can take it in terms of metaphysics or science, and it all works together. Now, one of the interesting things, scientifically speaking, about energy is that energy, in terms of science, is something that can, if I'm not mistaken, transmit heat and information. So we think about energy traveling down a fiber optic cord, and voila, we have the internet traveling the world, which is predominantly how it travels the world. In case you didn't know, there are enormous cables under the ocean, for real. And energy is traveling through those cables at extraordinary speeds, and information is encoded there. And in a similar way, I think human beings receive and experience energy, and we also have these two expressions, expressions, or two ways of encountering the spirit of life. And so one is more intellectual and emotional, and that is in meaning. And then the other is in sense and vibration. And the connection to our opening conversation about knowing other people's realities, and also going all the way back to Carrie's first comment, is that I've come personally to believe, and I'm very interested in your opinions today, as always, that we may more often than not do better focusing on energy awareness first and making meaning second. And very often we either ignore energy or we flip the focus. And as Carrie said, you know, we are all, I believe we are all energy beings, and we are all energy aware. Now, we are not all aware of our energy awareness, which means we're all picking it up. We're all registering it. We've all had the experience, for example, of being at an event which we thought we were enjoying or seemed pleasant enough. But then when you left, you know, you got in the car or whatever, you know, you got away from the scene and you took a moment and felt like, wow. And then you made a comment about the energy. That was a lot of energy, or that was too much energy, or that energy was chaotic, right? We have a natural way of narrating, making meaning out of our experience of energy. We also have probably all had the experience of sitting beside somebody, um, you know, waiting for a bus or on an airplane or whatever it might be. And the person says nothing, but somehow we feel everything, or we think we do. And then little by little, very often, they will say or do things to confirm the way we read the energy first. I shared in my newsletter this week, which came out today with a reminder about today's video, about today's class, a video that I just created for a group of people that were at a conference with me. And Carrie was referring to this. In the video, I talk about a way of cultivating energy awareness. It's based on sort of a model that's very common for people who teach energy healing. So that could be healing touch or therapeutic touch or reconnection or quantum touch, or I don't know, there's all kinds of these things. And originally, I believe it was Barbara Brennan who used the phrases push, pull, stop, and allow. And the video talks about how if we just cultivate the awareness of how energy moves between us and others, we can notice that it's not all the same. And it's not just psychological. There is a pushing feeling when people want you, for example, to buy something. There's a pulling feeling, for example, when people want you to believe something. There is a stop feeling when people don't want to let you in. And there is an allow feeling that is different than push and pull. Because if I'm pushing and you like it, you can pull and it works well together, and vice versa. But allow has a different quality. Allow is a more neutral, a more centered, grounded sort of feeling. And it is receiving mindfully. So allow is kind of the mindful position. Stop is the kind of guarded position. Pull is a little bit of a, I don't know, sometimes when it's too much, it's almost like a desperate feeling. And push is something like overbearing. Or even if you look at language, right? And I talk about this in the video. Energy awareness is so natural that we all actually have language for energy without even being taught about it. So we'll say they were being pushy, which is really an energetic term. Doesn't really mean anything otherwise, but we all know what it means. Or I felt like they were stringing me along, or we were trying to bring them with us, bring them, right? Bring them with us. Or I don't know if you're going to be able to pull him into this, right? Like that's all those pull words. And of course, the stop energy is sort of its most self-evident. We use the word closed, closed-minded, closed-hearted, and that refers to the stopping of energy. And of course, again, just going through the linguistics of the each, allow is very much an energy of welcoming. We associate it with acceptance, with mindfulness, and so on. So the exercise that I recommend for you, although we're going to talk about a lot of other things before we finish, is just to begin to pay more conscientious attention to these 4 movements. And almost like the way people, I don't even know if this is a thing, but the way people have a counter, maybe when people are walking into a movie theater and they click it, or there's behavioral modification techniques where you mark every time you have a certain kind of thought or a certain kind of behavior. If you begin to just track the movement of energy and you just note, oh, okay, this feels like pushing. This feels like pulling. This feels like stopping. This feels like allowing. That could be something in yourself or that you're experiencing from someone else. You just name it. That's it. That's the exercise. And little by little by little, as we name and name and name the experiences, it brings clarity. And as the awareness becomes more clear, then our intuition and choice can play their part. And an example might be, so I'll give you a couple of quick examples. Sometimes when I'm teaching, I can feel myself getting so excited about what I'm talking about. Some of you know what I'm referring to. And I move from being kind of like calm and grounded into pushing. Now, it's not terrible in a class. None of these things are good or bad. It all depends on the context. So pushing means I sometimes start getting really excited about my idea and I keep talking about my idea and I really want you to get my idea. So I'm just giving more and more and more and more examples and talking and talking and talking. And that's me moving out of allow, moving into push, and then maybe sometimes not realizing when I need to go to stop. Similarly, someone might share and we say, okay, everyone needs to share just like a minute because we have only 5 minutes left. And then someone goes, for 10 minutes. And then you can feel, oh, this one's stopped. This one's gone to stop. This one's gone to stop, right? People start shutting down when they start to feel some boundary's been violated. Pull the funny thing about pull is like when you want to be pulled by someone, right? Let's say you like, in fact, in street slang, to pull someone is to get them to like you, right? So a teenager might say this. It's kind of came out of rap culture, but you could use the expression, "Oh, do you think you could pull them?" And that means, could you get their interest? Could you get them to be romantically interested in you? But if sometimes I go into a store, particularly if I'm shopping for electronics, I want that. I want push and pull because I get confused. So they say, "Can I help you?" And I say, "Yes. Sell me your best. Like, give me your speech. Bring me along." Like, I want that. I don't want someone who says, "Well, it's over there. Let us know if you need anything." Some moments, no, take me there. Put something in my hand. Tell me what the sale is. I want the push and pull. What's important, once again, is that as you cultivate your ability to just label it in others and yourself again and again and again. Oh, push. Oh, pull. Oh, look at Jonathan. He's moving now back to allow. Oh, okay. Then we will naturally have the capacity to choose more wisely. And very often, this is sort of my big final thought before we move into an exercise, and then some group questions. Very often our difficult choices, decisions, and dynamics in which we are trying to come to clarity are best looked at first energetically and then assign the story. And that means that you slow down enough that you can start to ask, well, before I say who's right or wrong, or if it's a yes or a no, I'm going to just notice what I'm feeling energetically. Like, does this situation deplete me? Does this situation uplift me? Does this situation confuse me? Paying attention to the energy first will often give you a more accurate read on a situation. And let's face it, there's lots of things we love to do that are ultimately not energetically great for us. And there are things that are energetically great for us that we often abdicate or don't choose. So, energy awareness first, stories and meaning second. Now, we're going to go into a little exercise, but that was a spiel. I wonder if anybody wants to jump in with a question or comment before we do something else, or before we continue with another step. Any comments, questions, observations, clarifications? Yeah, Lanny, come on.
My whole issue for a long time has been energy drainage. That's like my number one thing. I've had tested on my adrenals, and yes, they're shot. But it's like, for me, it's like how, and I'm super sensitive. So I pick up anything, everything. It's not a gift, but anyway. But it's like, how do I use the energy to not be a drainage? How to, like maybe like you're saying beforehand, do something before I go into whatever. But it's like it's total drainage. It's just really tough for me.
Yes. So great question, because a lot of people who are energy sensitive or energy aware are more vulnerable to feeling drained, right? And it is a blessing and it's a curse, or however you want to say that. There's an upside and a downside. I have the same experience. I go to a party or a group or a gathering or whatever, and I am intensely feeling and aware of energy from everybody. So the thing to notice in ourselves, though, is, are we choosing stop? Are we choosing to conscientiously not follow the energy? And the way I think of it is a little bit like this. I had a friend years ago who was a very, very, very gifted psychic. And to the point where, I eventually realized that they, in any moment, could tune into what other people were thinking. And I said, like, how is this to live with? It kind of sounds horrible. And they said, well, it's a little bit like having a radio, right? Every person I talk to is a different station and it's always moving between. So I have to be, actually, it's a great analogy. So they said, so I have to be mindful that I'm not moving my focus too quickly because that's confusing and draining, but I can also turn the volume down. And they said, so actually, when I go to a grocery store, I'm not really reading everybody's mind. I'm aware that I have that sort of openness, and then I intentionally just, uh, like a passing an accident, I just don't look. I just don't feed it. I don't allow it. I take some command of it. So that can be helpful. And then, of course, there's also the ways we can prepare and care for ourselves when we have a harder time with boundaries and energy. We can go into some things with an intentionality that could be around time. Okay, I'm only going to do this for 10 minutes. I know I got to get out of there. Could be for the way we communicate. I'm going to let this person know I don't really have the capacity or time for more than 30 minutes or whatever it is. But we sort of we build in protective measures And sometimes it may be that we can't insulate ourselves in the event, but we can after. And, I was speaking to someone like this yesterday, and they were doing interviews with trauma survivors all day. And we talked about how they were monitoring their boundaries. In the end, they really needed to be present and open to everyone there. Their solution was to make sure that they didn't just end that day and go straight into caregiving with their family, but to take whatever I can't remember what they were going to do, but take 30 minutes and just go sit, like just literally stop at a park and go sit and not be on their phone and just kind of breathe and just feel the sun and allow a shift. So it's a great question, and we could talk a lot about it, but let's see if there's anyone else. Thank you, Lanny. Anyone else have something you want to add or ask around energy? Hi, Jan. Around energy experience or energy awareness. Are you saying hi, or did you want to add something? Just saying hi. Okay. Uh, Carol, are you leaning forward to unmute, or are you just leaning forward? Go ahead, Kuika. And
Hi.
Carol, if
It's
you
a
are, you'll
yes.
come on after.
It's a very interesting subject and dear to my heart. And I just wanted to ask how you advise us in those social situations where we're being pulled and tugged. And it's very seducing, the energy of the group and the people. And it's kind of the whole social context of why you're there is to be animated and to sometimes expend more energy than you have and then receive the kind of energy that really doesn't, meet our grounding needs. And so how do we socially in those groups with some of your suggestions of staying grounded and being an observer, pausing without the social labeling like you're quiet, you're an introvert, you're weird. Why are you here if you're not completely like a Disney character? And for me, I just get seduced. I get seduced in all this conversation and stuff, and I always leave exhausted. I leave taking on people's drama and this and that. And then I was like, oh man, I don't really like social events that much because they take more than they give.
So great, also great question. The first thing that comes to mind is a possible reframe, right? And this may not be for you, but this could certainly be for other people on the call, which is, I think it connects to Lenny's as well, which is if we have this awareness that these sorts of events can have this sort of effect, the first line of defense, I think, is actually not what I'm going to talk about next. How do we insulate ourselves and how to show up differently? The first thing is that sometimes we can go in with more conscientiousness. And what I mean by that is we quite literally, when we notice the memory, oh my gosh, I'm going to another one of these things, I'm going to get lost in it, switch from the kind of dread of the impact to, and this might sound somewhat silly, but to just consciously choosing it, which is, okay, I'm going to have fun, and I'm going to be aware that I may need some time to recover tonight or tomorrow morning or whatever it is. Now, this is a weird analogy, David, forgive me, but it's a little bit like alcohol. People, and I mean, I've talked to hundreds of people over the years about how they'll go to an event, go to a party, they'll enjoy drinking with others, they'll drink socially, they'll not be aware of how much they're drinking, they'll have an amazing time, they're dancing, they're laughing, they're relaxed, all this stuff. And then they'll talk about how they don't feel good later or they don't feel good in the morning. And I have to say that over the years, what I came to recognize with people is that about 50% of the time, the only real problem the next morning is that people just felt guilty because there was some old story that if you go out and you drink too much and you wake up feeling crappy, that somehow that just makes you a bad person or an alcoholic. The reality is a lot of people just came to terms with the fact that if they don't do it a lot, and they don't do it habitually, and they don't do it destructively, you know, to do it once in a while, and just kind of feel a little shitty afterwards, sometimes it's just worth it. So I'm sorry, because I don't endorse drinking. I don't think there's like a healthy amount of drinking, but it's a good analogy, because if there's fun and pleasure and connection in some social events, but we leave feeling depleted, I'd say as long as it's not a pattern that's self-destructive or habitual, I think we can be more gentle and forgiving with ourselves and just say, yeah, I'm going to go to those things, but I'm going to go mindfully. I'm not going to go too often. And I'm just not going to plan to do anything right after or in the next morning, because I know I'm going to feel all disoriented. I've picked up other people's stuff and now let's go to that next topic. The first is, so once you're there, let's say you're there and you don't want to just give it up and lose your energy. I would say the push, pull, stop, allow awareness is very helpful, because sometimes it's as little as changing our attitude. So the example would be that sometimes I will find, because I'm similar, I don't actually enjoy social events very much, but then I get into it and I start sharing with people, and then I might, I don't know, I'm going to make this up. Let's say I try to now get someone to read one of my books, which I actually never do in a social situation, but let's just pretend that's happening. I can become aware um, that I'm trying to get well, something more common would be like I try to convince someone something about Canada and the United States, or nature versus the city. Like I want to pull someone onto my side. If I'm mindful, or I keep returning to that push, pull, stop, allow awareness, I can usually realize, like, okay, you've been in pull for 10 minutes. Doesn't matter what you're trying to achieve. Let's slow it down. And then that means like I wrap up what I'm saying, or I ask a question and I turn it back over. But I do make the conscious decision to bring my energy back to myself, which means being more present moment focused. I bring my focus back more to my own energy and not theirs, and what I want them to experience. That's a very important aspect of the tactic. Keep your focus on your own energy experience, not on theirs, and not on your influence of theirs. That's where a lot of us energy sensitive people get drained. You can be around a ton of energy and in your energy and noticing the way it's affecting you. That's pretty durable or resilient. But then we add these other things. How is my energy affecting them? How's their energy affecting me? I want to change their energy. I want a part of their energy. And then we essentially lose our center. So being energy resilient is about being much more centered in yourself and grounded. The next thing, time, that came up with Lanny. Time is often a factor for me, which is just know when you need to pull out of a conversation. Or what I do to regulate myself in the middle of events is I actually just step away. Like I act like I'm going to the bathroom, but really I just go outside. Or I say I have to get something from the car and I just take a moment on the quiet side of the house and just breathe. So reset. And the final thing, there was a final thing, but I think I forgot what it was. Oh, the final thing is, it's also okay if sometimes we just are the weird one that shows up and listens and whatever, doesn't say what we used to say, or everyone's contributing and we're not. If that's what you need, I think that's okay too. So thank you for that. So what I'd like to do now is, I was just thinking a little bit as I was talking, let's move into the questions and close with the exercise. I think that might be nice, actually. And what the questions, when I say questions, I mean, I want to ask you questions. Who here has studied some type of energy healing or energy medicine? And I wonder if you would just share a little bit with the group what that was like for you, or what you studied, or whether it had an influence on your awareness. Carol, would you be comfortable talking about that? Like, what did you study? What do you feel you took away from that? Was there a value in learning some kind of energy healing system?
I actually studied for many years. Most of my studying was with Donna Eden.
Directly?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Um, I did 3 of her years, but it took 5 years to do. Um, she came over to London and did a lot of teaching. So I flew to London and met her there to do it. And I think that coming from a small island where you don't have that type of person and personality, ability and skills was quite an eye opener for me. So I think the experience of going to London is one, but then meeting Donna was quite a spiritual experience. It's life changing. It You think that it won't change you, but gradually you do, because you're in a different energy and you expand your own energy.
Hmm.
So yes, the more that you learn, you don't use it as you think you will. It becomes part of you.
Hmm. So tell me something about that, because first of all, I just want to highlight for people, you said something very, like, so important. Like, I can't even tell you how important it is, which is real change and healing happens when you're immersed in the energy, right? Because you said it was being, but the reason why that's so important is that a lot of people today, and maybe not the people on this call, but a lot of the people we all relate to, they feel like if you just read a book, you can understand something and be changed. If you just watch a video, you can understand something and being changed. But there is something about the energy of an idea, or the energy of a teacher, or the energy of a community, or the energy of whatever, a practice, being immersed in it viscerally is very different than purely intellectually. So how do you think experience Donna Eden, again, was the name, and Donna Eden is kind of like a master healer that's written all kinds of books and so on. So what do you think the influence was on your life? Because it's not unusual for people to say, oh, I went and studied Reiki or whatever it is, and I don't really practice it, but it was so important that I took it, changed my life. Can you say something about that?
Okay. You're not just spending an hour listening to them. It's not like they come out on stage, stand up for an hour, give a lecture, you take it in and go. These things are run different. They're residential. You're spending 4 to 5 days, and it's like 24 hours a day with them, because before you start class, you go to breakfast. You can join their exercise routine and do that with them.
Hmm.
That's before the day starts. That's before 9 o'clock.
Hmm.
They, when you break for lunch, they sit at the table with you at lunch. So you're seeing them living life as well.
Hmm.
You're seeing how they integrate their skills into their daily being. Um, so I think the effect for you dribbles in. It's a drip feed, so it's not a sudden thing.
Hmm.
You It opens you up though, because it's things that you didn't know existed. You suddenly find exist. People with skills at that level, they've learned to live with them. So you find, well, you can live with anything, and that's one of the ways that Donna teaches. So you take on board her belief that you can
That you can
adapt.
adapt.
So she won't hold her um, talks in some closed room. She likes to go into a hotel and have a conference room there. So you're integrating with life, you're integrating with the hotel and how it goes on.
Hmm.
In the evening, she'll have social things, and you're a part of those social things. So it becomes part of you. And I
Yes.
think that's probably the most profound change.
Oh, thank you. There's a book, just to build on what you're saying. There's a book that I recommend for everyone, really. It's called Coyote Medicine by a physician, Louis Malmadrana. The book is now, I don't know, probably 30 years old, but it's a very, very powerful book, and it's about a physician who is also or happens to be indigenous, Native American, and he talks about how awareness of energy transformed his work and career. In fact, he really abandoned being a doctor for being like a healer and a teacher. And one of the things he writes about in one chapter is his belief, which I, for the most part, share, um, that the most transformative therapies are immersive, like what Carol's talking about. That it's that rather than, for example, doing like 6 1-hour coaching appointments, spend 4 days immersed in that topic, day and night, in all kinds of settings, just like what you're describing. It's a powerful insight into sort of how we heal and how energy is influenced and maintained. So thank you. I wonder if someone else here has studied energy medicine of some kind and you want to talk about its effect. Chris, what about for you?
Sure. Well, I'm happy to jump in and have one of those 2 to 3 minute deals
Yes,
we talked
2 to 3 minute.
So the one that I'm familiar with is a school called pranic healing. A lot of people are probably familiar with prana energy. Um, this was a school of thought and a practice, if you will, started by a guy named Choa Sui. He was a Chinese Filipino guy, passed away about 15 years ago. And he didn't really invent anything. He just pulled all these things together. It comes out of the Buddhism teachings and your chakras and cleansing chakras and purification. And there's a school of Arhatic yoga that he coupled with this. And they are, I guess you would maybe say, the business side, teaching the classes and so forth. And yeah, the effects that I would say came from studying, this has been maybe 4 or 5 years ago now that I'm doing this, is really what led to my daily meditation practice. So that, of course, informs who you are every day. As she was saying before, I agree with that, that it's not, it sort of becomes part of just who you are, and you don't think of it as a separate thing. It's just the way that you're flowing and being, right? And the big gifts that have come from this are looking at inward character building quite a lot and just gaining an awareness and an enlightenment, those buzzwords that they like to use, but more awareness of the fact that everything is, just as you'd said, Jonathan, all energy and energy interactions between energy. That would be my short summary of things.
Yeah. Chris, it reminds me a bit of what Carol said, but it's true. So often we do study in energy healing, and then we realize it's not that we're actually wanting to be literal energy healers, but there's some aspect of that training, like in your case, this meditative mindset that allows you to be more open to energy.
Right.
That was more so what you took away, which turned into your passion for meditation
Right.
and guiding it. And based on the meditation that I know you do, it's very much about moving energy as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it's an awareness, like you said, not everybody takes the classes to become a healer. I'm an example. I know the protocols and the methods, but unless you practice it every day and build that as a focus, you don't necessarily need to become that.
Right.
But some are called, it's sort of like a calling thing at that point. But even if you're not called to go that direction, which I haven't been, at least at this time, you better understand when you're working with those people, healing yourself, what is going on, the communication, the nomenclature. It's all part of the, you could say, the experience, and it's
Yeah.
all ultimately about this human experience, right? And what's going on with the energy here and now.
Very good. Well said.
Moment to moment.
Moment to moment. All right. How about one brief little extra note from somebody, and then we're going to do a visualization, and we'll be done on the hour. Anyone want to add just a little blip or a quip? Nobody? You sure? They're like,
No
no,
blips or
man,
quips.
do that thing that you said you were going to do.
Blip
Okay.
and quip free.
So let's build off what Chris just shared. This is great. So this will take us to the end of our time. And what I loved about energy healing when I studied was not what we could do through our, hands or in an actual healing session, but it was coming to the realization that every time referring to what Chris was talking about, every time we meditate and every time we visualize, we are accessing the energetic realm. So what I'd like to close with is a very simple, very common, most of you have done something like this before, kind of energy scan, energy review. But it's like stretching or deep breathing. It's always good. It's always important. And it's also about invigorating that capacity within. So wherever you are, I hope you are able to take a moment to relax, put anything down in your hands, and hopefully you can sit comfortably and close your eyes. Now, to assist, I like to put my right hand over my heart, my left hand over my belly, but you do not need to. I find that is comforting. Whew. Makes me yawn. It automatically triggers the parasympathetic nervous system. And then I'm going to invite you to take a few big breaths in and deep breaths out. Real big breath in. Hold it just a moment. Notice the energy in your body. Notice tension or tightness, and then breathing it out through your mouth long and slowly. Feel yourself slowing down, calming down. And then just as you begin to feel settling and quiet, I'd like you to imagine that you have the capacity to sense the presence of a guiding energy in the room above you. You could call that a life force, a light, a higher power. And in a moment, you'll be able to picture or imagine it as a light, like a star in the room near you and above you. And you just follow along as best you can. It's okay if you don't picture these things perfectly. You can think them, imagine them, choose them, whatever works. So imagining what it would look like, feel like, to have a beautiful healing energy watching over you. And as you pay attention to that energy, feel the way it moves towards the top of your head. And now there is a beautiful, healing, guiding, wise light just above you at the top of your head. And you take a breath. You notice the feeling, the energy, the love. Ask yourself the qualities that it's transmitting to you. And then with your next breath, allow that energy, if you haven't already, to begin to shine into you, in through the top of your head. What would that feel like? A beautiful, soothing, tingling, healing energy flowing in behind your forehead, washing over and through, nourishing your brain, down into your brain stem. It's all illuminating within and around your head and face. What would that feel like? With your next breath, let the energy move down into your neck and throat. What's the color of the energy? What's the feeling of the energy? It's opening your power to communicate, flowing through your shoulders now, down through arms, hands, into fingertips. Feel it moving through your spine. Really picture energy and light traveling down your spine as best you can. What would that look like or feel like? And it's radiating into your heart, your spiritual heart, your physical heart. It's filling your chest, moving through your torso, your rib cage. Now imagining your whole upper body illuminated in light. Picturing the energy as it's already flowing into your hips, your pelvis, the very seat of your body. Let the energy move through there, every bone and muscle, and it's moving down into your legs. See, feel the energy alive and moving in your legs, into your knees, down through your calves, into your ankles, feet, toes. Really seeing, feeling, sensing your whole lower body illuminated with energy and light. And then a simple review as you sense your whole self glowing with this healing life force. It's within you, radiant around you, and moving from head down to toe and toe back to head. And take a moment to see if there's any part of your body or being that needs a little extra energy, a part that's harder to picture, connect with. Be intentional. Send the love there. Send the light there. And notice the way it feels to breathe in and out of this soothing life force. It is your most perfect boundary that holds you with nourishing love and light within. It allows you to express yourself fully, and it receives that which is nourishing and yet protects you from that which is not for your highest good. And from this place now, as we come to a close, imagine that you can send this, share this with each and everyone on the call, as though you could expand your bubble or breathe out a blessing of light, envisioning each and everyone who's hearing this wherever they are, now or in the future, all touched by this guiding, healing light that protects and unifies, that nourishes and gives. And we're going to close with this beautiful energy within us and around us. And you don't need to make it go away. You can sit there for a little while or just sign off quietly and gracefully. And then carry that awareness with you. So on that note, I want to say thank you to everyone here. Thank you for sharing your energy. And may you continue to receive the blessings of this moment together and all that we have transmitted and are transmitting to each other. If you are still in meditation, you can send some light to Joni, who had her surgery yesterday and is recovering today. And of course, send it to anyone you know that is in need And Joni is doing okay, but she could use the help. All right, let's do that. Lots of love going out. Oh, I got it too. All right, thank you everyone. And thank you, Russell. We'll see you guys all next week, hopefully. All right, bye-bye.